Hello, welcome to Caesar's Snack Sandwich. Today I'm just going to take a quick look at Akash network. Now this is something that's kind of outside of my expertise. It's not really DeFi, and it's for devs mostly. I do my best to use a flowchart to kind of go through and explain to you what are some of the options here, but I will mention that the documentation here is very in-depth, and I do suggest you, if you are interested in using this service for your needs, then you should definitely come and read these docs in full. And again, always join their Discord. Their Discord's quite helpful, and they will help you to understand and incorporate this service into your needs. Okay, now there's a little bit of talk about the AKT token, and I will talk a little bit about it. But again, if you're looking for an investment, you should do your own due diligence, read about all the tokenomics and stuff like that. But basically, this AKT token has several use cases. One is to provide security because it's a proof of stake Cosmos blockchain. There's some governance in there. There's some value exchange. So I want you to do something, I pay you with the AKT token. And then there's also some incentivization. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these in the flowchart. I'm going to kind of explain how does this network work and what kind of things you can do with it. But I do suggest you to kind of check out, dig deeper, and kind of understand what's going on, and go to this website and so forth. So let's swing over to the flowchart, and I'll explain things to you there. If you would like to support the channel, I would suggest you to check out the secretsandwich.xyz. It's the Secret Sandwich NFT project. You can come here, you can mint an NFT, or you can come and check out your NFTs. Okay, so let's get back to it. Okay, so here we are on the flowchart. Here we have Devin the dev. Okay, Devin is a dev for some project, and let's say he's the front end dev. He's running the front end and maybe the back end and stuff like that. And he needs some online services. Okay, so normally they will go to a different one of these companies like Microsoft, Amazon, AWS, or Google, and they will use these to perform online computations, because you don't run a website on your own computer. You deploy it to the cloud. The cloud kind of does the calculations that need to be done, the computing like things, and then it supplies your website with that with those computations. So for example, like maybe there are some APY numbers or some fetching of numbers and stuff like that, and you need to use these servers to kind of get that data, do some mathematics on it, and then display the output of that mathematics. So this is just a rough example. Now, if you are a dev, I'm sure you have a better explanation than that already in your head. But for the normies who are just trying to understand kind of generally what this thing's doing, that's kind of what these services are for. Okay. Now, the problems with these services is they are centralized. Okay, so they have censorship. If the government calls up Amazon and says, "Hey, this front end, close it because it's doing something we don't like," then Amazon will most likely close it. Okay. And then also the cost is set by these guys. These guys decide how much their service is worth. They might work together, they might compete, they might, like if they talk together and they say, let's charge $10, even though it costs us $1 to do it, and they all charge $10, then you will have to pay $10. And that's what I mean by cost cent. Like these are centralized companies, and they also have a lot of overhead. They have employees, they have wasteful admin, they have stockholders who need money and who want, profits and stuff like this. They have all these issues, right? And that's what the cost being able to set the cost for you is the problem that you will have to face. You will have to pay for these needs of these companies. Okay, so the other option here is this Akash network. Okay, now this Akash network is fully decentralized. Okay, it's uncensorable. Like there's no way for the government to tell Akash to close your website. It can't happen. Okay, the other thing that makes it very special is there's bidding on how much the service will cost you, and which I'll get into it when we talk about the example up here. But instead of the company setting the cost, you set the cost, and then people bid on it, okay? And then there's also the talk about it being faster because it's not, going through a centralized server. It can be like, any kind of, I'm not exactly sure why it would be faster, but I'm guessing it's because, there's a lot of traffic going through these and maybe less on these and so forth. I'm not exactly sure, but it does say in the docs that it could be faster. So maybe you can figure this out yourself. So moving on. So one of the things you need in order to interact with Akash is you need a Cosmos wallet. So they talk about the one called Kepler. Now there are some other options as well, but let's say he uses, Devin decides to use Kepler. So he uses the Kepler wallet, so that's the first thing he needs to do. Get the Kepler wallet, put it into his browser, and it works similar to MetaMask in that sense, okay? Then he needs to get some Akash tokens. So he can go to Kraken or some other centralized exchanges, and he can buy those and then send them to his Kepler wallet, right? His Kepler wallet has its own seed phrase, its own stuff, right? So he would send it to the Akash network on the Kepler wallet, or he can go to some decentralized exchange. We have it at Velocimeter, but it's not very deep there, but it's also on Osmosis DEX or the Osmosis chain, right? And then if you did do that, you would probably have to bridge it from Osmosis. But if you do use Velocimeter to buy this token, then you definitely have to bridge it, and you would use the gravity bridge to bridge it across to the Kepler wallet on the Cosmos chain, right? So now that you've got some Akash AKT tokens inside your Kepler wallet, then you can deploy your package to this network. Okay, so this is where I'm definitely not an expert, and if there's a dev, he probably doesn't need me to explain it to him because he knows. And if you're not a dev, then you probably don't really need to understand it. But basically, they use this SDL language, and it's a standard language that most devs are using, and they package up their front end and stuff like that, their needs, and they send it to this network. They set the needs, like I will need this much commuting power to do this, and this, right? And then they decide a price. How much are they willing to pay for this? These needs to be met in some senses. Okay. Then we have these cloud operators. So they're part of this network. They're not the validators. They're cloud operators. They have computing power, okay, and they connect to the network, and they see that there's an ask, an item on the list that they could supply their services, their computing power to meet the needs of Devin here, and then they bid on it. So maybe Ninja Nick here will be like, I'll do it for $1 a month, or Nicholas is like $1.50, and Nikki is $2. Now, why would you choose Nikki if Nicholas is cheaper? Well, maybe Nikki has a better track record. She's audited by more auditors and stuff like that, and so forth. So you can decide between them, and then you can change anytime you want. There's no penalty if I want to change from Nicholas to Nick, or I want Nikki. I like Nikki now, and I want to move to Nicholas or to Nikki, and so forth. And there's also talk in the docs about being able to directly talk with these people. There's no middleman. Like if you wanted to talk to the guy running the computer at Microsoft, that's not going to be possible, right? It would take quite a while. So you have a direct line of communication to these guys as well, as far as I can tell. I wasn't able to see that or find exactly where it was, but I did read about that in the docs, okay? Now, another user inside this ecosystem is the validator himself, because this is a blockchain. This is a proof-of-stake Cosmos blockchain, okay? And the gas is AKT token. So in order for him to validate the blocks, because when you send this, when you deploy your SDL here, you have to pay gas. So you send some money, you pay some SDL, right? So you pay the gas to send this transaction here, and then you also have to have the AKT to pay these guys their $1 a month or whatever, right? So this gas is being paid, it's being written to a blockchain, and these guys, when they accept it, they're writing transactions to the blockchain and so forth as well, right? So there needs to be validators. So there are validators on this AKT network, and in order for them to be a validator, they need to stake AKT tokens. And what it said in the docs, which I I wasn't able to see exactly what it is right now, but it basically says that how much do they need to stake is greater than the last person who opened an active validator. So every time a new validator joins the network, the amount of staking goes up according to what it said in the docs there. Now, another actor could be an investor, like a dollar bill. He has a whole bunch of AKT tokens, and he can stake them to help secure the network and gain APR through like normal like validation proof of stake emissions, right? And the last thing I'm going to talk about is some other features. Okay, so this is a simple feature of, oh, I want my back end or my front end to have some computing power, so I need to use this. So there are some other possibilities. One, you can lease LPs or IP addresses. So if you wanted a static IP address, the IP address is always the same. You could use the Akash to do this. You could use it for persistent storage. So maybe instead of like, oh, I need a cloud storage, instead of using Google Drive or whatever Google Cloud or whatever cloud storage thing you wanted, you could use the Akash network to store some data, you know, your wife's pictures or something like this. You can use this to authorize spending from some protocols, like let's say you have a whole bunch of money in your treasury and you want to give money to certain individuals to do things within your community or within your project, then you can use this to do this authorized spending. And then there's also the opportunity of doing like VPS, and that's basically being able to like run nodes. Like if you want to run a node on another blockchain, you need computing power, and normally you would have to pay for one of these centralized ones to unless you run your own physical node in your house. But you can also run a node on a cloud node, right? So you can use the Akash network to do one of these like VPS networks as well. Okay, so that pretty much covers what this is. I am going to swing back over to the docs. Actually, I'll just bring it right into the view here. So this is some of the things that I wanted to kind of highlight. So these are the apps that are currently already using Akash, and this kind of hit me as a surprise, like especially if I know DeFi pretty well, and I didn't know that like Bank or Balancer, SushiSwap, UMA, Yearn, Thorchain, Curve, Ren, and all the synthetics, they're all using this Akash for their dApps according to this document. Now this could be outdated, they could have changed, but I find that very good. I find that very, very bullish for this use case. Now I'm not sure if the tokenomics makes sense for like whether or not this is a good investment. You'll have to look at the tokenomics yourself and decide that. But knowing that all of these high-profile users are using the Akash network for their needs, I find that to be pretty good. And there's other things in here too, like blogging, WordPress, some video games and stuff like that, and all kinds of other things. You can kind of go through here and read this as well. Okay, so that pretty much covers this for today. I'm sorry I didn't go in super in depth on this. It's not something that's I understand completely, and I'm not very familiar with. Especially some of these tabs in here kind of throw me off with the technical needs and stuff like that that they support. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been useful and interesting. And as always, I suggest you to go check out this project and go ask more questions and dig deeper. And thank you. Goodbye.